Okay, we're back into open session. Next item, item 3, is to approve the minutes from the September 26th meeting. Does anyone have any corrections or questions on the minutes?
I have a really quick, I don't have any changes to the minutes, but I have a quick question. Has all the retro pay been paid to the bus drivers with respect to both the local raise and the state raises?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That's
All
it.
right.
I move to approve the September 26 minutes.
All right. We have a motion to approve the minutes. Joe seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay. Next item, item 4, fiscal year 16-17 comprehensive audit financial report. Dennis, all yours.
Okay, I pass out you guys the section of the audit report just for this meeting. Our auditor will be at the full board meeting to do the official report on the audit. But in the package that I sent out to you, if you turn to the back that has page 56 and 57, that just goes over the findings of the audit. And I am very proud to say that Union County has a clean audit for fiscal year 16-17. There was no material weaknesses identified and no non-compliance of materials or financial statements.
Okay.
And like I said, the chief auditor will be here on Tuesday to do the official report. But for you guys, just want you to know that the audit was clean and there was no findings.
All right.
And we're sure we have a senior partner, somebody that can speak to this outcome, right?
Yes, he will be here.
Okay.
So we're going to get the full audit for the December meeting, because this is just internal control stuff, right?
Yes.
And federal and state funds.
Yes.
We'll get the whole, we've audited the financials.
Yes.
And they are.
He will go over
They
all
are
of that.
such. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm like, these are just.
Yeah, that's just overview. Okay.
Oh, these are just internal control findings.
Yeah.
Which is great that there's no material weakness or.
Leslie or Joe, do you have any questions on the audit report?
I don't.
Okay. Are you looking for us to, is this for information only?
Information only.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item, item 5, which is the 2016-17 fund balance.
And unfortunately, they're not going to have this.
I was just going to say, they don't have this form.
Yeah, I can.
Leslie and Joe, Dennis handed out a fund balance analysis sheet, which he will email to you, and maybe we can just go over the highlights. And I don't know if you have, Leslie, do you have access to your email?
I do.
Okay. How about you, Joe?
I do.
Okay. So if you email it to them, they can access it.
Yeah, I guess while he's emailing, I have a question. I'd love to know how we all of a sudden have a fund balance of 5.7 mil as opposed to what we're expecting, like a 1.6.
Well, I imagine you're the only one that has that question, but I'm being facetious. Dennis is going to give us. Dennis is going to explain it.
As soon as you all get that spreadsheet, I'll try to explain it all.
Yeah. Could you acknowledge when you both get that email with the spreadsheet?
I would like to discuss the fund balance analysis and where we are before we talk about assignment of the fund balance.
Yes, we're going to go over this one.
Yes,
Philosophically,
absolutely.
I want to understand the fund balance and everything before we have a conversation if and how we're spending it.
So you have the one item, which is the fund balance analysis spreadsheet, which is being emailed to you. And then, of course, we would be referencing the proposed fund balance assigned, which was part of the package of information. It's towards the front, if I remember right.
Okay, I can go over and do
Why
the
don't you go ahead and
philosophy
start?
about
No,
fund
yeah,
balance.
yeah.
For any government entity, you should create a fund balance, which is like your rainy day fund. And so at a school district, the only funds you're able to carry over to create this rainy day funds is funding that you either receive from here in Union County, fines and forfeitures, and the ABC revenue. The dollars and the dollars we receive from the county as part of their taxes. Oh, excuse me. As part of their taxes, we expend all of those dollars annually.
And that's operating and that's capital. And-
Operating is annual.
Right. And
The
capital
money
fund.
carries over.
Right. Right. Because of the projects.
Yes.
But those are the two types of county funding from ad valorem taxes.
We don't get capital up front, so that
Right,
wouldn't
right.
be in our
Correct.
fund balances because they pay. It's a pay as
It's
we
Pay
go.
as
as we
go.
go. Right. But those are the two appropriations we get from the county.
Yes.
And those come from property taxes,
Basically property taxes.
property taxes, yeah.
Yes.
And you're talking about two other sources of revenue
Right.
that are, by statute, we get our piece of that.
Yes, sir.
Again?
Fines and forfeitures
Mhm.
and ABC revenue. We get approximately 800 some thousand for fines and forfeitures, about 60 to 70 for ABC revenue, 60, 70,000
About 850
roughly. Yes.
a year.
Yes. And so over the years, those dollars accumulate if you don't spend them.
All three buckets, operating from the county and liquor and.
You could
Right.
technically.
If you don't spend the operating dollars from the county, it would carry over.
Okay.
Okay.
But most school districts, and then two that I've been involved in, you always expend your county money. And so what's left to create your fund balance is those other revenue sources.
The liquor funds and the fines. and
Yes.
forfeitures.
Fine.
And over years, that accumulates.
But you can spend it,
Yes, you can,
but most school systems put it into.
unless they have, and which we'll get into later, unless they assign a use for those funds
Right.
Okay.
going into the next year.
We've never heard about fund balance.
I was told that.
Yeah.
We've never heard of it.
Now, let me ask you, the fund balance that accumulates from the ABC funds and the fines and forfeitures, are you obligated to use those? If you decide to use those or a portion of them, are you obligated to use those as operating expense? Or
Yes.
can you do why
It's
can you not
operating.
use capital? For
It's an
capital?
operating expense. It's
Okay.
not capital budget.
So
By
the-
statute, they are operating expenses.
by statute.
Yes, sir.
So could you go to the county and ask, well, if it's state statute, you can't even go ask anybody to use it for capital instead.
Well, you wouldn't,
Correct.
what he's saying is the liquor funds and the fines and forfeitures aren't within the purview of the county's
It
authority.
passes through.
Correct.
Yes. So if it was Union County ad valorem taxes, then you could have a discussion about
Capital,
operating
I
the
know.
capital and
Yes,
stuff like that.
correct.
But he's saying liquor funds and fines and forfeitures go
Does this come
directly
directly? I'm sorry, go ahead.
by statute to the school system and can only be used for operating
It's
funds.
paid to the county as a pass through to us.
Okay, so it does come through the county.
Yes.
Right, okay. So that explains
But by
where it came.
statute, they have to give them.
Yes.
And they have been.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a matter of we're owed this and we don't have it.
Right.
It's we have it.
And that number fluctuates each year.
Well, it
So
goes
if
up
you have a
don't
lot, if
use
you
it.
have a lot of
Yeah.
criminal activity,
Yeah.
your fines and forfeitures could be very big.
Right. Okay. And more people buying alcohol
Yes,
or more ABC stores open
Yes.
up or what?
that's correct.
Sure.
So that
Okay.
that is a fluid number each year.
Okay. Is it average? That was an average, that
Yes,
850?
the last couple of years, that's been about the average.
Okay. All right.
Have they received the email?
I think there's a problem.
Have you got everything? Did you, Joe, Leslie, did you get the email?
I had to reboot. I'm sure it's here. I'm almost getting it. Keep talking.
Okay.
Yeah, I just refreshed and it's here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So if you look at the spreadsheet that says fund balance analysis, I'm gonna try to explain how fund balance works. I went back to 2007 to look at how fund balance is noted in your financial statements. In 2007 through 2010, they were categorized as reserved and unreserved. Reserve means that you have purchase orders outstanding that you set the money aside to pay. Unreserved means that the money is available for use and determination of how you're going to use it. So in 2000, if you look at 2008, of which I had the CAFR 4, we had $11 million that was unreserved, meaning it was to be used as the board and superintendent decide how to use.
It was not committed.
Correct. In that year, in the CAFR, 8,508,000 was set aside for subsequent years' expenses, meaning they determined what they was going to use $8.5 million for.
And they spent the other almost 3 million on something.
Stayed unreserved.
It stayed unreserved. Gotcha.
So it just sits there in your fund balance.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you look across the spreadsheet, all the yellow highlight is money that's available for use, of which the board and the superintendent would have decided how to use. Down at the bottom of the sheet, if you see the title, it says subsequent years expenses. That means someone made a decision as to how much of that yellow highlighted number they were going to use the next year.
So in the past, they have pulled that money out for use.
Yes. And if you go over to the 2014 school year, because I heard this was a conversation before I got here, they used 3.1 million of the 6 million for technology. And they also had 2.8 million of something else. I don't know what the something else was.
But in the past years, before 2014, they didn't spend it. They spent some of that, right?
They just titled it subsequent years expenses. They didn't highlight what it was going to be used for.
So we don't know what it was
Right.
used for.
Correct. In the financial report, it doesn't say what it's used for. It just says subsequent years expenses.
And you can get away with that. I mean,
That's
line of
normal.
detail
Yes.
is
That's all that's required in your
practice.
financial statement.
well, not necessarily standard practice, but all that's required.
Yes, that's what's required.
And you'd have to dig pretty deep to figure out where it actually went.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't know if I could find that unless it's recorded somewhere. That's why if you move forward to 2017, as you can see, the highlighted yellow numbers comes to 5.7. And we're bringing to you guys how we intend to use a portion of the 5.7, which before wasn't brought to this body.
So the 5.7, available for use, but then you have to subtract what they did in the subsequent year expense to get to the 5.7. Is that?
Yes, how it builds up
So
all the
each
way
one is
across,
taking it
in and out,
slowly,
in and out, in and out. Like if you look at
So the subsequent, it's just going up and down.
up and down, depending on what they determine to use the money for. And if
they
they
use
dip
it
into
and,
fund
and more
balance.
goes in.
Right. So if you look at between 2009 and 2010, they used 3 million of fund balance that year because it dropped by almost $3 million.
Well, and in 2008
it-
and 9, maybe
it-
2 million.
Yes. So based on decisions as to how we're going to use the money, it fluctuates up and down as to what is available.
Technology.
And they use between 12 and 13.
Yes, exactly.
So
for-
how can there be no other subsequent years expenses? Like, how did that all of a sudden dry up? We have no commitment for these funds at all.
He said that they didn't have, they didn't have to say what they were for. You can't find it.
Joe, which year are you looking at?
I'm just looking, all of a sudden, 2016, it dries up. We have no other commitment on the books for these funds. And it just seems odd to me that
No,
it's
in
year
two-
over year, we've had purpose for this. So all the way back to the reserved, unreserved, and then all of a sudden, subsequent years just dries up. Like, we have no commitment for these funds.
No,
I just find that hard to believe.
Well, in subsequent years' expenses, okay, go to 2016, the $2.7 million, that was set aside for technology. As you all know, it got moved to charter school payments. So to answer Joe's question, They could have just put the 2.7 into subsequent years' expenses, not annotated that it was for technology. And that's what I'm assuming they done in the prior years. They just didn't annotate what it was for. They just left it in that one column.
In 2 years in a row, 14 and 15, they set aside 3.1 million.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
One part of the 7.
No, each in 14, they set aside 3.1 million.
Mhm.
And then in 15, they set aside 3.1 million.
And we have no idea what.
It should have been spent for technology.
So for subsequent year expenses, how do we not have the lease payments that we just entered into for technology? How did that not carry over to be a 2017 subsequent year's expense?
Because that's a capital item, not a operating.
Correct.
So the
So the
purchase.
lease payments become capital? Are you
Yes,
sure?
it's a capital.
It's capital
We
lease.
Capitalize the lease.
That's right.
Yeah. So in the past,
Wait,
this,
wait. 14, just can I ask this?
No, go
before
ahead.
we move on?
Go ahead.
14 and 15, we spent $6.2 million on technology, supposedly?
Yes, ma'am. That's how it was set aside.
and it was classified as a operational expense. So that was purchase. It was not a capital lease, obviously.
Yes,
All
it
those
was
were
a
purchases
purchase.
up until the last time.
Here's my big question. If we're taking in, give or take, and I know it fluctuates, the amount that we're getting from fines and forfeitures and liquor funds. If it's about $850 a year, how did we build up that kind of reserve? It goes way beyond you just
Yes,
started at 7.
correct.
It goes
This-
way back
It goes to when you became a school system.
in every school system.
Yes. Yes. At CMS, fund balance is about $18 million.
Because, yeah.
Alright.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
I mean, never been talked about.
This has never been disclosed and explained in such detail since I've been on the board.
So basically, Joe, what I'm hearing is that if it isn't broken out into one of the other things, that we don't know where they spent that money on each year.
Mhm. Beyond these general categories.
Right, but the only thing that's in general
Technology.
categories is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Starting in 2014. Prior to that, we have no idea how these, well, we only have a limited knowledge even in 2014 because it's technology. But prior to that, we really have, like Kathy's saying, we really don't know how those reserves, fund balance were utilized when they were pulled out.
But they should have brought, when they went to use the money, there should have been a budget amendment brought back to the board to appropriate fund balance, or it would have been included in your next year's budget as a fund balance appropriation.
How they funded the initial one-to-one laptop.
In what year was that?
Well, it's been starting when I came in 2007, 8.
Okay.
So it's how the district has funded that laptop initiative from the county. Didn't fund it in my tenure. I don't know that it all came through in amendments and transfers, but I know that's how we funded it.
Okay.
It should have come through in an amendment.
So there should be a paper trail somewhere
Yes,
of how
somewhere.
this was. Okay. All right. And now you have to move forward. We have a proposal in front of us to utilize other than 1.8, right at 1.9 that you're recommending we leave
Yes.
in the fund balance
As unassigned.
as unassigned. We have before us a proposal for some items.
Right. And like I just stated, for this to actually be spent, we will have to bring back an amendment. This is just for you all's references.
Mhm.
It's nothing for you to approve.
Right.
It's just for reference.
information
that
only.
We will be bringing these amendments to you when we're ready to expend these dollars.
Well, I think that as a committee and as a board, I think you're going to have to explain this to the whole board because this is really new information for most people on the board. So I think we all have to understand it even before we can start talking about expending the funds. I just want to make sure I understand it all. before we say, okay, this is what we're going to expend funds on, because
I agree with Kathy. I mean, as sitting on the SPIT committee, none of these technology requests have come up, and it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like, okay, well, what's the wish list, and let's spend it.
And
Like if I heard that there was a continual need for some of these items, and then, you know, all of a sudden the funding was there, I think it'd be one thing, but I'm concerned that all of a sudden we found a way to spend, you know, $3 million when we weren't planning on it before. So
What were these items being considered for this next fiscal year's budget, and we're now able to pull them forward? The fund balance, is it just accelerating the timetable? If this fund balance wouldn't be here, would these items be in the next year's budget?
Yes, they will be considered for the next year's budget, especially the technology pieces.
Okay.
And
but not the classroom libraries for 3 through 5, because we could fund that
That
with
was
state
already
dollars now.
moved forward.
yes,
Okay.
So, but definitely classroom libraries for middle school, which I know is another big push. And I've seen lots of middle
Yes.
schools asking for money for
Okay.
their classroom libraries. So I get that part. The Chromebooks, I think the SPIT committee is looking at that. I know that we've been talking about a refresh, and our 5-year plan has a refresh for 9 through 12 or 6 through 12 or something. My concern is where are we prioritizing things? I don't want to spend the money on this stuff why are we buying Chromebooks when we have to go buy a refresh of 6 through 12, and we decided to do that. And I get the difference between capital and operating. I do, I promise you. But we had committed to doing capital leases for them. Now in here, we're buying them. And I get the need. I do. I'm not disputing the need for them. I'm disputing how we're going about doing it.
The mechanics of
I think
we're
we
changing
need to,
course.
I think we need to have a plan, and then we
Right.
follow the plan based on how we can, you know, when the money comes, or just, we need to have a plan and not view that we're just like outspending, you know, how it fits in our plan. We have our plan of, as money comes in, this is the first thing. As we save here, this is the next thing. I think
Okay.
that's
Well,
kind of
here,
what-
I'm going to agree with you, and here's what I'm going to propose. That this is basically an information only at this point.
yes, sir.
I would like you to refer the technology items and Chromebooks, et cetera, to SPIT
Yes.
committee for their consideration. And then they can kind of go through the need as well as why are we buying versus leasing, as we intend to do with the refresh. Let them kind of, we can both work on it from
Yes.
that
I
angle.
don't disagree, but first it needs to go to the full board next Tuesday night to understand this fund balance and that the money's there.
I
And a
agree.
decision has to be made by the board if we want to have this money opened up this year and spend
Yes.
spend overall $3.8 million and still have, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my piece of paper right here. Spend
1.9.
3.8 million and keep 1.9
Yes.
for other things that we might need. I think that as a board, we need to have that discussion and then send it to committees to make the decisions and have the conversation at SPIT with Jay Parker about what the needs are and how the money can be best used and how we're going to get the money for the refreshes and all that kind of stuff. So that this is, like Gary said, a comprehensive plan on how to do it. The other things that are on here, other than technology, are a little bit more one-off things than others. I fully support classroom libraries. The leadership program, didn't we just set aside $250,000 for leadership training in the low-performing schools that the county gave us?
There
We
was
did.
some
In the
training
county
funding.
budget, there's leadership training.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Is this for the other schools?
I assume it's for the
No.
other schools, but I just
It's
want to,
for-
in a partnership
Mhm.
platform for 40,000. I just want to kind of understand, and I don't know what committee those other, well, classroom library sets go through curriculum,
Curriculum,
and I
Probably
assume,
the training, leadership training as well.
The
I
leader-
assume the other two go through.
The leadership training is to take every sitting principal to training. It's not
Okay.
on
How
any
does that
particular
overlap?
school.
Okay, so that's 150,000 for 50.
That's for principals.
For
What we
50
budgeted
Sitting
for
for 40
teachers,
for
right?
47 schools,
The mon-
but we're spending 250 on 6 schools. You see,
but the 250 is for teachers.
A lot
no,
more.
it's,
It
Now,
was
is
for-
it to bring in, yeah, that'd be good to know what kind of training. Is it someone that we're bringing in that like 50 teachers are sitting in at once? And then,
Okay.
you know what I
what's
mean?
for teachers?
Okay.
Which one's for teachers? Are
The
you
one we
saying?
budgeted. All right, let me see if I can kind of
We can talk.
summarize what
I'm not
the
gonna go over this.
thoughts of the board here so we can move along. First of all, I think it's important, and as Kathy mentioned, bring the whole concept of the fund balance, how it came about, how it's funded, philosophically, what do we want to do with it, and bring that before the entire board. And then these particular items would be under the venue of the appropriate committee to devise the need. And if what you're saying, if these items, if for some reason we don't intend to use the fund balance for these items, they will most likely be showing up on next year's
Right, and
budget.
that's something that's fit and the committees can
Right.
talk about.
Then they can hash
Right,
through.
but first step is to take this to the full board, have a discussion at the full board about it, and then we can say, okay, as a board, we're good with the 3.8 million or whatever the number is, and these committees are going to take ownership of deciding how
Mhm.
the money should go and how it fits into the next year's budget as well, and what our needs are for next year. Leslie and Joe, do you agree with that?
Does that sound?
I agree.
Ron?
Yes.
I
Leslie?
do.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
do.
Any other questions on this particular item? All right, we'll move forward to draft calendar for 2018-19.
Jay put up the PowerPoint. We're going to begin our next year's budget process in December by meeting with all our fund owners, department heads, and working through a modified zero-based budget where we will review all contracts, equipment, supplies by line item to determine the need versus the return on our investments. Those conversations will be held between the finance staff and the department head. And then we will move on and have those same type conversations with our cabinet members as they review their budgets. And that's in the January through February timeframe.
Dennis, excuse me one second. As part of that, are we looking at the strategic plan that we just put in place to
Yes,
determine the need of each one of those plans as well?
That's
Like when
correct.
you talk about modified zero base, that is a factor taken into consideration,
yes,
right?
yes, sir. We will
Okay.
look at need versus, well, we will examine the strategic plan, cost out the needs for next year that's in the strategic plan, review our current expenditures to make sure those are still within meeting the needs of the strategic plan, and make determination as to if we continue those or stop some of those to create funds to help fund the strategic plan.
Perfect.
And so if you continue across that timeline at the top, you will see that we plan to have the superintendent's budget recommendation ready for presentation to this committee on the week of March 27th through 29th, where we work through all of our issues as the cabinet and has put forth the superintendent's budget to bring to you guys and present it to the Board of Ed on April 3rd. The bottom is when you all are involved. As you can see, we plan to have a BOE committee meeting that just talks about the philosophy of putting the budget together, giving you any updates on estimates from the county or the state, anything we're hearing from the federal government. It's just an update. There'll really be no specific information for Union County.
That's BOE Finance Committee.
Finance committee.
Yes.
So we've been asked to set our meeting dates for next year so that we can get the PDC and everything
Yes.
on the calendar.
Sure.
So can we set the finance committee meetings? So I think on the last calendar, the draft we saw had some dates, but I would like to get some of those on the calendar in February and March.
Okay, I would send those out to you guys to make sure you're all okay
Right.
with those.
Yes.
Because I do know.
It looks like
certain
you're looking at
dates.
the last week of the month generally
Yes.
through
Generally.
here.
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe we could say, what is it? Is it policy that meets the last week of the month?
The last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday. Maybe we
No,
could,
yeah, the last one. Fourth Wednesday.
fourth Wednesday. Maybe we could aim for the fourth Tuesday morning of each
Okay.
month moving forward.
I'll take a look at
So
that.
you don't anticipate the need for a meeting in January?
No.
February is the
No,
start?
we won't have any information that will help for the budget.
Okay.
Unless you have some sort of transfer or
Right.
something.
Something comes up. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So that
Which
could
we-
be
Which we
called.
could have once if we decide the fund balance and the committees come back with recommendations, we
That
may
might-
need to come.
that
Yes,
might-
that
okay.
should come back to the
So,
finance.
so
committee.
let's
We
put on
should
the calendar.
schedule one
Yeah.
just to have.
For January.
Schedule subject to be canceled if no need. So
Okay.
why don't we aim for the fourth Tuesday, 8:30 in the morning? Is that going to work with you folks as well? A standing meeting, good unless canceled. Last
Yeah,
The
eight
fourth
would be
Tuesday.
much better for me instead of 8:30.
8?
Yeah.
How about you, Leslie?
It's fine with me.
All right. How about 8 o'clock? Can we make
Yes,
that
sir.
happen?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to have standing meeting, Tyra, moving forward, the fourth Tuesday, 8 a.m., room 203. Now, if this room is not available,
That starts in January?
yeah, in
Yes.
January.
Okay, not Christmas week.
Right. Okay. So if it isn't, we go to another room and we use the older equipment, or we get by with what we can. Okay.
Yeah. We'll move some other stuff around and
What-
make this room
Right,
available.
and what I've said at policy and facilities is we're going to set dates clear through the year and if the PDC is not available, we'll hold it in the boardroom and it won't be taped, but people are welcome to come.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And I
Go ahead.
put that by Michelle, if we could do that. She said, that's fine.
Okay.
We put out our calendar for the whole year and there's some sort of conflict with the PDC, we'll hold it at the boardroom and it just can't be live streamed.
So how far out is this room booked, Tyra?
I don't know, it's not my area.
Oh, okay.
This is someone else's area, but we do think I work with both of them.
Okay.
That's why we want.
Okay.
We schedule,
What?
we schedule
I go through.
May.
Schedule out, we had conflict for facilities and one
Conflict for policy.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just, we'll let you get back to us when you can, if there's any conflict with those dates for finance where we need to move elsewhere. So we'll start with a meeting, whatever the date is. I don't have my calendar in front of me. Whatever the date is, the fourth Tuesday in January, 8 a.m., room 203, the PDC, unless notified otherwise or canceled for lack of need. How's that?
Yes, sir.
You work with that? Okay.
Yes. But I need to point out to something for you guys that's on that timeline. If you go to the third arrow on the bottom,
Mhm.
I talked to Jeff, and that meeting with the BOE and the BOCC is a joint meeting if we want it. They don't necessarily want one. Only meeting they want is after you all have sent our request over to them. So if you go over to the last block, that May 8th to 18th timeframe, that's when we should go present our request to the BOCC. That first meeting I understood was for some items you all was dealing with last year. And they said that meeting is totally up to us if we want a meeting in April.
Yeah, we could talk about that because if I remember right, last year we had the joint meeting and then there were some substantial changes afterward. And then they said, well, we didn't need to, we'd already met. So just make those changes. You don't have to come back again and present. So it would make sense to just do one when it's
When it's
here it
presented.
is.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So we'll leave that as optional.
Yes,
With leaning towards not having,
correct.
rather do it at the end with something finished. Okay. Any other questions on the budget timeline?
Nope.
Joe or Leslie?
Nope, none for me.
All righty. We'll move on to next item, item 7, City of Monroe Health Support Interlocal Agreement. Dennis, looks like you're up on that as well.
Yes. Based on earlier conversation, this is the only thing that you all need to approve to go to the full body board. And we will hire 2 equivalent full-time nurses and a social worker with the $200,000 set aside for Monroe City Schools by.
I'd just like to add a comment that this is the result of several meetings, including joint meetings with officials from the city of Monroe. This is an unprecedented level of cooperation between the city of Monroe and UCPS, which I can't say enough for the leadership on the city council and Mayor Kilgore and the staff to make this happen. It is very exciting to see their level of commitment to actually put their money where their mouth is and to come forward and work with us to provide needed services in some of these schools. And it's I appreciate their willingness to partner up with us on these projects. And I thank staff for bringing this to fruition. Are there any questions on this? Michelle, did you want to add something? Come on up. Come on up here. Get to a mic. Yeah.
I reached out to council for the city on the concerns that we discussed.
Is your mic on?
And
Mic. Yeah.
I reached out to council for the city on the concerns that we discussed. And if you want to recommend it moving forward based on those concerns being addressed, and then I'll have everything for you before the next meeting.
Before Tuesday's meeting.
Correct.
Corrected. Okay. Leslie or Joe, did you have any questions on this agreement?
I do not.
Okay. Joe?
Just before we put it to motion, I think we had a few amendments that we would like to make. I don't know that we.
That's what Michelle was just saying, that they'll make those changes before Tuesday night's meeting when it goes to the full board. If we want to approve it as amended, as we discussed, then she will put that in and it'll go to the full board with the changes.
They will clarify to clarify those questions we had.
Right.
Okay.
Kathy, any
I make a
questions?
motion to recommend to the full board adoption of the interlocal agreement for support of Union County Board of Education's health programs within the city of Monroe, as amended by Michelle over the next couple of days.
Do I have a motion? And Leslie seconds. All in favor of approving the interlocal agreement? Say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Item number 8, next meeting. Well, I believe that's been set for the 4th Tuesday in January.
Yes, sir.
If so needed, at 8 o'clock here in the PDC. Okay, and are there any other items that we did not address?
That would be the 23rd.
Yes.
23rd.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sides, there is a item.
Please.
I sent you guys the format for the financial
Oh,
update.
yes. I liked it.
Format.
You have requested a template
Yep.
to come to you guys.
Was that in the package? That was
Yeah,
separate.
it was
Yes.
it
It
was
was-
in the same package, but it was a separate, it was an Excel document.
Yes.
Oh, that thing. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So I just want to make sure that you all was okay with that format. It gives you the adopted budget, the changes to the budget, which would be the amendments that brought forth to the board
Right.
to give you your current budget and then your current expenses. What's the balance? How much is spent
Yes.
for all line items?
Yes. Broken down
Yes.
in all 3. Did you all hear that?
Yes,
Joe, Leslie?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Great. Thank you for that. And I also want to thank Staff Dennis for your research into the fund balance issue. In my 3 years on the board, I have, not having served on the finance committee, and it obviously was not explained in depth to the full board. I want to thank you for your research on this item and the clarification in learning where the money comes from and supposedly, hopefully, where it can go. And I appreciate all your work in digging that out. I'm sure you pushed a lot of paper to get through that.
I have a question on the quarterly report first, but I agree with Gary. On the quarterly report, is this the first quarter?
Yes,
Okay.
that was end of October.
So these are October 31 financials,
Yes.
and these will go to the full board as well for the board meeting?
I'm not certain.
I think that the full board should get
Get
a
a
copy
full-
of the quarterly
to see-
financials as well.
Because
Oh,
in
I
the
can make it
future-
available. That's not a problem.
Yeah, because in
That's
the
what I mean.
future,
That's all
you'll
I
put them
meant. I don't
through.
mean
Yeah.
you have to do any,
Yeah.
just,
Let them see the format as well.
or don't let them see the financials.
Yes.
Okay. Include that in the package. We can do that in finance update. Okay, great. Any other business come before the committee? I will entertain a motion to adjourn if not.
Motion to adjourn.
Joe makes a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Leslie seconds. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you.